I tested my husband, telling him, "Honey, I got fired. But I'd actually been promoted." He exploded, calling me useless. The next day, I accidentally overheard his conversation with my mother-in-law. What I heard next left me completely frozen in horror. I couldn't believe my ears. "Justin, I made your favorite breakfast." My husband walked past the kitchen counter where I'd arranged blueberry pancakes in a perfect stack, fresh squeezed orange juice gleaming in the morning light that streamed through our 20th floor Manhattan apartment windows. He didn't even glance at the spread. His fingers moved across his phone screen with the intensity of someone defusing a bomb, and he grabbed only his coffee, black, no sugar, in the travel mug I'd prepared exactly how he liked it for 8 years straight. "The team dinner is at 7 tonight," I said, keeping my voice light while flipping another pancake for myself. "Remember? I'm hosting the entire marketing department at that new steakhouse on 5th Avenue. Real entrepreneurs don't have time for corporate parties, Kimberly." He didn't look up from his screen. "Some of us are trying to build something that matters, not just shuffle PowerPoints around a conference room." The spatula trembled slightly in my hand. I set it down carefully, watching the butter sizzle in the pan. 3 days ago, in my boss's corner office overlooking the Hudson River, she'd offered me vice president of marketing. The promotion came with a $200,000 salary, nearly double what I was making. The woman who'd mentored me for 5 years had actually stood up from her desk, walked around and hugged me. "You've earned this, Kimberly," she'd said. "You're going to transform this department." Before we continue, comment below if you've ever felt diminished in your own home. Your stories matter, and sharing them helps others recognize these warning signs. Now let's see what happened next. I'd sat in my car afterward for over an hour in the parking garage, engine off, staring at the concrete wall. My first instinct had been to call Justin, to rush home with champagne, to celebrate this victory we'd both worked toward. But then I remembered what happened 6 months ago when I'd gotten my last raise. He'd spent the entire dinner at his brother Marcus's house making jokes about being a kept man, about how his friends all wondered what it felt like to be married to the breadwinner. Later that night, after 3 whiskeys, he'd accused me of deliberately trying to emasculate him. So the promotion letter stayed folded in my purse, hidden beneath my wallet and hand sanitizer. I'd wait for the right moment, I told myself. When his next startup showed promise. When he was feeling confident. When the timing was perfect. Actually, forget the coffee. Justin set the travel mug down on the counter hard enough to splash liquid over the rim. "Mike wants to meet early about the pitch deck. This could be the one, Kimberly. The venture that finally breaks through." Mike Richardson hadn't returned Justin's calls in 3 weeks. I knew because I'd heard Justin leaving increasingly desperate voicemails from our living room, his voice climbing higher with each unreturned message. But I just nodded and wiped up the spilled coffee with a dishcloth. "Oh, and Mom's coming to stay this weekend," he announced, finally looking at me directly. His eyes were that particular shade of defensive that appeared whenever he mentioned his mother. "She wants to help us organize our finances." "Our finances?" I folded the dishcloth precisely, fighting to keep my voice neutral. "I handle all our bills, Justin. The spreadsheets are updated every week. What exactly needs organizing? Maybe if you weren't so controlling about money, I wouldn't need to ask my mother for advice." His jaw clenched in that way that made a small muscle jump near his ear. "She's been managing a household for 40 years. She might have insights you haven't thought of." The irony was sharp enough to cut. Heather had never worked a day in her life, living off her husband's insurance payout after he died 10 years ago. Meanwhile, I'd been managing our actual finances since Justin's first startup burned through his inheritance. I'd refinanced our apartment lease, negotiated lower rates on everything from internet to insurance, and somehow stretched my salary to cover both our expenses while he chased his entrepreneurial dreams. "I'll prepare the guest room," I said quietly. "Already did it," he replied, scrolling through his phone again. "Moved my office stuff in there too. Need better light for video calls. The spare bedroom gets great afternoon sun." The spare bedroom where we'd once talked about putting a nursery. Where I'd imagined soft yellow walls and a rocking chair by the window. Now it would be his office, a place where I apparently wasn't welcome anymore. That evening, I stood at the sink washing dishes from my solitary dinner. Justin had texted that Mike kept him late, though Mike's Instagram showed him at a Yankees game, when Justin's phone rang. He looked at the screen and his entire demeanor shifted. The slumped shoulders straightened. The permanent frown lines around his mouth smoothed. He actually smiled. "I need to take this," he said, already heading toward the balcony door. Through the glass, I watched him pace along the railing, his free hand moving through the air as he talked. He laughed, really laughed, throwing his head back in a way I hadn't seen in months. His whole body language was different, looser, younger somehow. Like the man I'd married had suddenly reappeared on that balcony, except this version wasn't talking to me. When he came back inside 15 minutes later, his face had already reset to its default expression of mild irritation. "Who was that?" I asked, drying a plate slowly. "Just Mike. Finally called back about tomorrow's meeting." He didn't meet my eyes, already walking toward the hallway. "Don't wait up. I need to review some documents." Mike had posted another Yankees photo 5 minutes ago, beer in hand, captioned, "Best seats in the house." I stood there holding the damp plate, watching my husband disappear into what used to be our shared space, and felt something I couldn't quite name settling over our apartment. It felt like the moment before a storm when the air pressure drops and birds stop singing. That stillness that comes right before everything changes. The promotion letter was still in my purse. The pancakes had gone cold on the counter, untouched. And somewhere on that balcony, in the space between my husband's genuine laughter and his lies about Mike, our marriage had shifted into something I didn't recognize anymore. 3 days passed with that promotion letter burning a hole in my purse. Each morning, I'd watch Justin ignore the breakfast I made. Each evening I'd wash dishes alone while he took mysterious calls on the balcony. The pattern had become so predictable that I could time it. Coffee grabbed at 6:47, dismissive comment at 6:48, door slam at 6:52. Thursday afternoon I sat in my office staring at quarterly projections, but my mind kept circling back to one thought. What would happen if I actually needed him? Not wanted, not hoped for support, but genuinely needed my husband to be there for me? The question grew from a whisper to a roar until I found myself walking to the bathroom, gripping the marble counter and staring at my reflection. "Honey, I got fired," I said to the mirror, testing the words. They felt strange in my mouth, foreign and wrong after the triumph of my promotion. But I needed to know. I needed to see who my husband really was when the polished surface of our life showed a crack. I practiced the lie all day. During the marketing meeting where my team congratulated me again on the VP position. During lunch with Sarah from legal who asked why I looked distracted. During the subway ride home where I stood among strangers and felt more alone than ever. By the time I reached our apartment door at 6 p.m., still wearing my navy blazer and clutching my purse, I'd rehearsed the words enough that they almost felt true. Justin sat on the couch with his laptop, probably browsing startup forums or messaging investors who'd long since written him off. He glanced up when I walked in, mild annoyance already painted across his features. My presence was an interruption to his important work of failing upward. "Honey, I got fired." The transformation happened in slow motion and all at once. His fingers froze over the keyboard. His head snapped up. The annoyance on his face morphed into something I'd never seen before. Not in 8 years of marriage, not even during his worst startup failures. Pure, volcanic rage erupted across his features. The laptop slammed shut with such force that I jumped. He stood up and suddenly the room felt smaller, suffocating. "Of course you got fired." The words exploded from him. "You're useless, Kimberly. Absolutely useless. You can't do anything right, never could." My hands started trembling. This wasn't the reaction I'd prepared for. Disappointment maybe. Stress certainly. But this venom, this satisfaction lurking beneath his anger, this was something else entirely. At 32 years old you still can't hold down a job. What am I supposed to do with you? He paced now, running his hands through his hair. Do you have any idea what this means? The rent, the bills, everything falls on me now. Not once did he ask what happened. Not once did he ask if I was okay. Not a single question about whether it was layoffs, performance, restructuring. Nothing that showed even basic concern for the woman he'd promised to love and cherish. "I'm sorry," I managed to whisper, the words barely audible over the blood rushing in my ears. "Sorry doesn't pay rent, Kimberly. Sorry doesn't fix this disaster you've created." He grabbed his phone, already scrolling through contacts. "I need to call Mom. She needs to know about this immediately." I stumbled toward our bedroom, then veered into the marble bathroom, the one I'd paid to renovate last year with my bonus, selecting each tile, each fixture, creating a sanctuary that now felt like a bunker. I locked the door and sank to the cold floor, my back pressed against the solid wood, needing something stable to hold me upright. Through the thin walls, Justin's voice carried clearly. He was on the phone with Heather and his tone had shifted from rage to something worse. Triumph. You were right, Mom, she finally screwed up. Pause. No, fired completely. Today. Another pause. I know. You called it months ago. My stomach churned. They'd been discussing this, anticipating this, waiting for me to fail. But why? I paid most of our bills. I supported his dreams. I was about to double our income with my promotion. Why would my failure bring him satisfaction? We'll figure out the apartment situation this weekend when you're here, he continued. Yes, she's in the bathroom crying probably. Typical. As if I had a pattern of failure, when the only pattern in our marriage was my consistent support of his inconsistent dreams. The call ended and I heard his footsteps pause outside the bathroom door. For a moment I thought he might knock, might ask if I was okay, might remember that he was supposed to be my partner. Instead, the footsteps continued to the living room. The television turned on. Sports highlights, the volume deliberately loud. Hours passed. I finally emerged from the bathroom to find him stretched across the couch, a beer in hand, watching replays of basketball games. He didn't look up. I'm going to bed, I said quietly. Yeah, you should rest. You'll need energy to job hunt tomorrow. He took another sip of beer. Don't expect me to support us for long, Kimberly. I'm not that kind of man. The kind who'd lived off my salary for 2 years apparently was different from the kind who'd support me for even a day. I lay in our bed, suddenly too large, too cold, staring at the ceiling. Somewhere in this apartment was the man who used to hold me when work stressed me out. The man who'd stroke my hair after difficult presentations, who'd whisper that everything would be okay, that we were a team. But that man felt like a character from a movie I'd watched once, someone I'd invented to avoid facing the truth about who I'd really married. Sleep wouldn't come. At 3 a.m. I made a decision that would have horrified me 6 months ago. Tomorrow I would spy on my husband. I pulled out my phone and composed an email to my assistant, using my new VP privileges for the first time in a way I'd never imagined. Family emergency. I'll be out tomorrow but available by phone for urgent matters. It wasn't entirely a lie. This was an emergency. My family, what I thought was my family, was revealing itself to be something else entirely. Tomorrow, while Justin thought I was desperately job hunting, I would position myself strategically in our apartment. I would listen, watch, and discover what he and his mother were really planning. The decision should have felt wrong, like a betrayal of trust. Instead, it felt like survival. Something was happening in my home, something that went deeper than a husband's lack of support. The satisfaction in his voice when he talked to his mother, the speed with which he'd called her, the way they'd apparently been discussing my potential failure for months. All of it pointed to something planned, something orchestrated. I closed my eyes, not to sleep but to prepare. Tomorrow I would learn the truth. Tomorrow the real test would begin. Morning light filtered through our bedroom curtains as I waited, my body coiled with tension. Justin had left for his fictional meeting with Mike at 9, and I'd positioned myself carefully in our apartment, ready to become someone I never thought I'd be, a spy in my own home. By 11:30 I'd already discovered things that made my skin crawl. His browser history showed apartment listings in neighborhoods I'd never heard him mention. His email drafts contained half-written resignation letters from committees we both served on, dated 3 weeks from now. Everything pointed to plans I knew nothing about, a future being carved out without me. At exactly noon his phone rang. Justin was on the balcony again, but this time I'd prepared. I'd cracked our bedroom window just enough to let sound carry through. I stood behind our bedroom door, the hallway in perfect view, my heart hammering against my ribs as his voice drifted inside. She finally got fired, Mom. Just like you predicted. The satisfaction in his tone made bile rise in my throat. But the next words changed everything, shifted my entire world off its axis. No, she has no idea about Emma. Pause. The baby's due in 3 months. Emma. Baby. 3 months. My legs nearly gave out. I gripped the doorframe, forcing myself to stay silent, to keep listening even as my mind screamed. Who is Emma? What baby? 3 months meant 6 months pregnant, which meant this had been happening while I was planning our anniversary dinner, while I was defending him to my colleagues, while I was lying beside him every night believing we were building a life together. Once the apartment situation is sorted, Emma can finally move in properly. He's been patient, Mom. More patient than we had any right to expect. The front door opened 20 minutes later. I'd barely managed to compose myself to stop my hands from shaking when Heather's voice filled our entryway. She never knocked anymore, just used the spare key Justin had given her without asking me. "Justin, darling, I brought everything from the lawyer." I watched through the crack in our bedroom door as she swept into our living room, a manila envelope tucked under her arm like a weapon. She moved with the confidence of someone executing a military operation, each step deliberate and planned. She set the envelope on our coffee table, the one I'd found at an estate sale in Brooklyn, spent 3 weekends sanding and staining until it gleamed, and began pulling out documents. "Now, since the lease is entirely in your name," Heather began, her voice carrying that particular tone of superiority she'd perfected over years of looking down on me, "this becomes quite simple. She can't afford the rent without a job. We document her non-payment, file for breach of lease terms, and she'll have no choice but to leave." "What if she fights it?" Justin asked, but he sounded more curious than concerned. "With what money? She's unemployed now, darling. No savings after supporting your ventures all these years. She'll be grateful for whatever you offer. I'm thinking $1,000 as a gesture of goodwill. Enough for a security deposit somewhere modest. $1,000. For 8 years of my life. For the furniture I'd bought, the home I'd built, the marriage I'd believed in. I needed to see more, to hear everything." Moving silently, I slipped into our hallway closet, pulling the door almost closed, leaving just enough space to see through the slats. The winter coats I'd organized by color pressed against my back as I tried to control my breathing. "The spare bedroom will make a perfect nursery," Justin said, and the enthusiasm in his voice knocked the wind out of me. "Emma's already picked colors. Yellow and green woodland animals on the walls. She sent me pictures from Pinterest." "That girl has wonderful taste," Heather replied, settling into our couch like she owned it. "She deserves this apartment after everything. Being so patient while you dealt with that career-obsessed wife of yours. 9 months of waiting in that tiny studio while Kimberly played executive. Career-obsessed. The woman who'd worked 60-hour weeks to keep us afloat. Who'd turned down a job in San Francisco because Justin said he needed to stay in New York for his connections. Who'd sat through countless dinner parties with his startup friends, smiling while they dismissed my career as corporate drone work. Emma understands what really matters," Heather continued. "Family. Supporting her man. Not this constant competition about who earns more or whose name is on what document. She's already planning where everything will go," Justin said, pulling out his phone to show his mother something. "The crib here, changing table by the window. She wants one of those glider chairs for nursing." Nursing. Baby. Justin's baby. With someone named Emma who'd been waiting in a studio apartment I'd unknowingly been financing while paying our rent. "There is one complication," Heather said, lowering her voice slightly. "Emma's divorce isn't finalized yet. That'll be done by the time the baby comes," Justin waved his hand dismissively. "Her husband's been out of the picture for over a year. He's not contesting anything." The casual cruelty of it stole my breath. Emma was still married. Justin was still married. They were both having an affair while legally bound to other people, planning to play house in the apartment where I'd hung our wedding photos, where I'd cooked thousands of meals, where I'd foolishly believed I was building something permanent. "You know what's really funny?" Justin said, and then he actually laughed, a sound that would haunt me for months. "Kimberly always prided herself on being so ethical, so honest. Meanwhile, I've been paying Emma's studio rent for 6 months, using the emergency credit card she doesn't know about. Every time she talked about transparency in relationships at those dinner parties, I wanted to laugh." "You did what you had to do," Heather soothed. "Sometimes men need to make difficult decisions to secure their legacy. Your father would understand." His father, who died when Justin was 15, who'd become this mythical figure of masculine perfection that Justin could never live up to but constantly invoked to justify his failures. "Emma's 24, Justin added like it was a point of pride. "Young enough to give me several children if this first one goes well." Several children. With a 24-year-old he'd been hiding in a studio apartment, while his 32-year-old wife paid his bills and believed his lies about failed meetings and startup dreams. I pressed my hand over my mouth, terrified I might sob or scream or vomit right there in the closet. Everything made sense now. The distance, the criticism, the sudden interest in our finances. They weren't trying to fix our marriage or organize our future. They were orchestrating my complete erasure, planning to slide Emma into my place like I'd never existed at all. I stayed hidden in that closet for another 40 minutes after Heather left, until my legs cramped and my breathing finally steadied. When I emerged, Justin had retreated to his makeshift office in the spare bedroom, probably messaging Emma about their future woodland nursery. I walked to our bathroom mirror and practiced my new role. "Thank you so much for being patient with me," I whispered to my reflection, forcing tears to well up. They came easier than expected. The next morning marked day one of my performance. Justin found me at the kitchen table with my laptop open to job sites, tissues scattered around me like props in a play I was directing. "Any leads?" He didn't look up from his phone. "A few entry-level positions." I made my voice small, defeated. "Marketing assistant roles mostly. The pay is, well, it's something." He actually smiled. "Sometimes we need to be humble, Kimberly. Start from the bottom again." I nodded meekly while my phone buzzed with actual work notifications. My team asking about the quarterly presentation, my boss confirming our strategy meeting. I told them I was working remotely due to a family situation, another half-truth that felt completely justified now. "Maybe," Justin said, pouring coffee into his travel mug, "you should consider visiting your sister in Boston. Clear your head. I'll cover the rent this month." The generosity of a man planning to evict me. I let my bottom lip tremble. "That's so kind of you. Maybe just for a few days. Take a week." "Take 2. He was already heading for the door. "I'll even help with travel money. Say $1,000. Should cover your ticket and some expenses." $1,000. The exact number Heather had mentioned. They'd rehearsed this. "You're being so understanding," I said, adding a small sob. "I don't deserve you." The irony of that statement hung between us, but Justin just patted my shoulder awkwardly and left. The moment the door closed, I transformed. Laptop out, VP hat on. I handled 3 crisis calls from my team, approved a major campaign, and negotiated a vendor contract that would save us $40,000 annually. All while sitting in my pajamas at the kitchen table where Justin thought I was browsing minimum wage jobs. By noon, I'd relocated to a coffee shop 12 blocks away, somewhere Justin would never go, too trendy for his taste. I managed my department remotely while maintaining my cover, sending Justin texts about how hard job hunting was, how grateful I was for his patience. Just saw a posting for a receptionist position. Fingers crossed. I texted him. "Good luck. Remember, any job is better than no job," he replied. That night, I waited until his breathing deepened into snores before beginning my real work. His phone sat charging on his nightstand, password unchanged because he thought I was too broken to snoop. Screenshot after screenshot. Texts to Emma about baby names, messages to his mother about lawyers, emails to Marcus about hiring a moving truck. I found the credit card I didn't know existed, registered to his mother's address. 6 months of statements showed the truth. $800 dinners at Lou Bernardine when he told me he was at sports bars with clients. A $2,000 necklace purchased the day I'd gotten my last raise. Prenatal vitamins auto-shipped monthly to an address in Queens. Emma's studio that I'd been unknowingly funding. My paralegal friend Sarah met me for lunch, the next day at a quiet restaurant near her office. I'd told Justin I was at the library using their free resume workshops. "Document everything," Sarah said, reviewing what I'd found. "New York is an equitable distribution state, but adultery and financial deception matter. Get your own bank account immediately." "Already done," I said, sliding her a paper. "Opened it yesterday. The VP signing bonus is already deposited." Sarah's eyebrows rose. "VP? I thought you were fired." "So does Justin. So does his mother. So does his pregnant 24-year-old mistress." "This is chess, not checkers," Sarah said approvingly. "What about housing?" "I'm viewing apartments tomorrow. There's a 1-bedroom with a doorman on the Upper West Side. Month-to-month lease to start." While we talked, my phone buzzed with Justin's helpful job hunting advice. "Saw this posting for a data entry position. Only $15 per hour, but beggars can't be choosers, right?" I showed Sarah the text. She nearly choked on her salad. Reply with gratitude, she advised. The more secure he feels, the sloppier he'll get. Thank you so much, baby. Replying right now. You're so supportive. I typed back, adding a heart emoji that made my skin crawl. Week 2 brought darker discoveries. In Justin's email drafts, I found a message to Marcus from 3 weeks ago. Jennifer did amazing with the shower. Emma was glowing. Can't wait for you to meet your nephew properly. Jennifer, who'd had lunch with me last month and asked if Justin and I were planning kids soon. Jennifer, who'd hugged me at Thanksgiving and called me sister. The entire family had been celebrating my replacement while breaking bread at my table. Marcus had replied, happy to help with the move when it's time. Storage unit or straight to donation. They were discussing disposing of my belongings like planning a garage sale. I found more. A group chat called Fresh Start with Justin, Marcus, Jennifer and Heather. Photos from Emma's baby shower. Pink and blue decorations in Jennifer's living room I'd helped her paint last spring. Emma opening gifts while my in-laws smiled around her. Already accepting her as family while I was at a marketing conference, presenting strategies that would revolutionize our company's approach. Justin had written, for more weeks Max K thinks she's job hunting but really just circling the drain. Heather had responded, pride goeth before a fall. She's learning that lesson now. Jennifer, Emma's so much better suited for our family. Marcus, need any help with the legal stuff? My buddy Tom is a divorce attorney. They had lawyers. They had plans. They had a timeline where I was already erased. But they didn't know about my promotion. They didn't know about my bank account. They didn't know that while they planned my destruction, I was building my escape route brick by careful brick. The alarm went off at 5 a.m. on departure day, but I'd been awake since 3, staring at the ceiling and running through my plan one final time. Justin stirred beside me, then rolled over with unusual energy. Today was Christmas morning for him. The day his burden of a wife would finally disappear. I moved through our apartment with theatrical purpose, dragging my 2 largest suitcases from the closet, making sure the wheels scraped loudly against the hardwood floors. Justin appeared in the bedroom doorway within minutes, already dressed despite the early hour. Need help with those? His eagerness was almost comical. I've got it, thanks. I heaved the suitcases onto our bed and began folding clothes with exaggerated care, placing each item like I was saying goodbye. The black dress I'd worn to his company launch party. Back when he still had a company. The blazer I'd bought for my first director presentation. Each piece a small funeral for the life I was supposedly leaving behind. Justin hovered, pretending to scroll through his phone while sneaking glances at my progress. At one point he actually started whistling. While his wife of 8 years packed to leave their home. The Uber will be here at 8. I announced, showing him my phone screen with the fake booking I'd arranged. Flying out at 11:30. Boston will be good for you, he said, not even trying to hide his smile. Fresh start and all that. I nodded, adding a small sniffle for effect. You're right. I need to figure out who I am without all this pressure. He actually reached out and squeezed my shoulder, the first physical contact we'd had in weeks. You're being very mature about this, Kimberly. Like I was a child who'd finally learned her lesson. By 7:45, my suitcases stood sentinel by the door, a perfect picture of defeat. I'd even placed my key on the entrance table, positioned just so, like a final surrender. Justin kept checking his phone, fingers flying across the screen. Emma must have been getting updates in real time. She's packing now. Suitcases by the door. Almost free. I should go, he announced suddenly, grabbing his jacket. That networking breakfast I mentioned? Can't miss it. Networking breakfast. With a pregnant 24-year-old. I wondered if they'd already picked out which booth would become the baby's corner, which wall would hold the growth chart. Of course. I gave him a watery smile. Thank you for everything, Justin. For being so patient with me. He paused at the door and for a moment, just a flash, I saw something that might have been guilt cross his face. Then it was gone, replaced by barely contained anticipation. Text me when you land, he said, already halfway out. Take care of yourself. The door closed with a decisive click. I counted to 60, then went to the window and watched him stride down the street, phone pressed to his ear, gesturing animatedly. The same gestures from that balcony call weeks ago. He turned the corner, disappearing from view, and I exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. Time to work. I yanked the suitcases away from the door and unpacked with military efficiency. Each item returned to its place while I transformed our kitchen table into a war room. My promotion letter went in the center, the gold letterhead catching the morning light. Around it, I arranged everything in chronological order. Emails from 3 months ago when the affair started, credit card statements showing the decay of our marriage and financial transactions, ultrasound photos dated 6 weeks ago when I'd been cooking him anniversary dinner. My laptop took position at the head of the table, screen open to the recording app where 43 files waited like soldiers. Each one time-stamped, labeled, ready to deploy. Justin and Heather planning finances. Emma discussion with Marcus. Jennifer lying about baby shower. The printer hummed as it spit out the final pieces. Screenshots from the Fresh Start group chat. Emma's Instagram showing her baby bump in what looked suspiciously like jewelry I'd never received. LinkedIn messages between Justin and divorce lawyers dated 2 months ago. At exactly 10 a.m., Sarah arrived with a leather portfolio and the kind of sharp smile that made opposing lawyers nervous. Ready for this? She spread her documents next to mine, creating a beautiful mosaic of destruction. Lease termination agreements, she explained, tapping the first stack. Based on constructive eviction and breach of quiet enjoyment. The hidden credit card and financial fraud give you grounds to break the lease without penalty. What about the $1,000 he offered? Sarah actually laughed. After what you've contributed. That's insulting enough to be considered bad faith negotiation. Document that offer. It helps our case. She'd been thorough. 3 moving companies on standby, all available for same-day service. A storage unit already reserved in my name. Even a locksmith in case things went sideways. The apartment on the Upper West Side? I asked. Confirmed. You can move in tomorrow if needed. The building manager was very understanding about the situation. Understanding. Such a gentle word for, your husband is having a baby with another woman while plotting to destroy you. Sarah's phone buzzed. The movers are on standby. 1 call and they'll be here in 30 minutes. We reviewed everything once more, adjusting placement, ensuring maximum impact. The visual had to be perfect. Not just evidence but a story. The story of a woman who'd been underestimated, dismissed and discarded. The story of a man who'd confused kindness for weakness. Remember, Sarah said, squeezing my hand, stay calm. Let him react first. Record everything if possible. And if he gets aggressive, call 911. I know. She left at 11, promising to stay available by phone. The apartment felt different now, charged with potential energy, like the moment before lightning strikes. I walked onto our balcony one last time, needing air that didn't taste like betrayal. 20 floors up, Manhattan sprawled before me in all its indifferent glory. Taxis honked. People hurried. Life continued as if my world hadn't shifted off its axis. 8 years ago, Justin had carried me over this threshold, both of us laughing, drunk on champagne and possibility. We're going to build an empire, baby, he'd promised, setting me down and spinning me around to see the view. You and me against the world. I had built something. A career that flourished despite his mockery. A reputation that opened doors he couldn't even see. A future that gleamed brighter than this view, even if I'd be seeing it from a different window. The sound of keys in the lock made my spine straighten. Noon exactly. Justin was always punctual when it came to things he wanted. I took one last breath of high-altitude air, then stepped inside to meet my husband for the last time as his wife. I positioned myself at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around the anniversary mug, and waited. The coffee had gone cold 20 minutes ago, but I needed something to anchor me, something to keep my hands from shaking. The door opened with its familiar creak, the one Justin had promised to fix for 3 years. He walked in whistling, actually whistling, his keys jingling as he tossed them onto the entrance table. Then he froze. The whistling died mid-note. His eyes swept across the kitchen table, taking in the display I'd arranged with museum curator precision. The promotion letter's gold letterhead caught the light first, then the ultrasound photos, the credit card statements fanned out like playing cards, the printed emails arranged in neat rows. His laptop bag slipped from his shoulder and hit the floor with a dull thud. Going somewhere? I asked, taking a deliberate sip from the world's best wife mug. Justin's face went through a transformation I'd never witnessed before. Confusion rippled across his features first, his eyebrows drawing together as his brain tried to process what he was seeing. Then came recognition, his eyes widening as they locked onto specific documents, the ultrasound photo, Emma's name on an email header. Finally, terror settled over his features like a mask, draining the color from his skin until he looked gray in the afternoon light. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound emerged. "Sit down, Justin." My voice came out steadier than I'd expected, each word carved from ice. "We have a lot to discuss." He didn't move. Couldn't move. His hand gripped the doorframe like it was the only thing keeping him upright. "Emma's baby is due in 3 months. I began, my tone conversational like I was discussing the weather. "Though I'm curious, does she know you've been calling it our baby in text to your mother? Or that you've been planning to adopt Mark's name for a boy?" His legs buckled. He caught himself on the kitchen counter, knuckles white against the granite I'd selected 2 years ago. "You went through our shared cloud storage." "Yes. Amazing what you can find when your husband forgets he gave you the password. Like this credit card, for instance." I held up the statement. "The one registered to your mother's address. $8,000 in charges over 6 months. Jewelry for Emma. Prenatal vitamins. That lovely dinner at Lou Bernardine when you told me you were at a sports bar with Mike." Each word landed like a physical blow. Actually swayed. "The baby shower was beautiful, by the way," I continued, sliding Jennifer's photos across the table. "Your sister-in-law has quite the eye for decoration. Pink and blue balloons, that gorgeous cake. Emma looked radiant in the dress you bought her. The one from Saks, according to this receipt." "Kimberly, let me explain." "Explain what?" "How you've been paying her rent while I covered ours. How your entire family has been planning my removal like some kind of corporate restructuring. How you called me useless and pathetic to your mother while planning to steal the home I've paid for. You're being paranoid. You're taking things out of context." "Am I?" I pulled out my phone, swiped to the recording app. "Let's listen to some context, shall we?" His voice filled the kitchen, crystal clear through my phone speaker. "She finally got fired, Mom. Just like you predicted." Then Heather's response: "She'll be grateful for whatever you offer. Maybe $1,000 to start over." Justin again. "Emma deserves this apartment after being so patient while I dealt with that career-obsessed wife of mine." I played another file. Another. His plans to claim abandonment. His jokes about my ethics while committing fraud. His laugh when discussing how he'd been living a double life. With each recording, Justin seemed to shrink, his body folding in on itself. The confident man who'd walked in 5 minutes ago had evaporated, leaving behind someone I'd never seen before. Small, exposed, caught. "New York is a one-party consent state," I said, setting down my phone. "Every conversation, every plan, every cruel word. All legally recorded. All admissible. You can't. This is illegal." What's illegal is financial fraud. Using marital assets to fund an affair. Planning to commit lease fraud by claiming abandonment. Should I continue? He slumped into a chair, head in his hands. For a moment, just a heartbeat, I almost felt pity. Then I remembered him laughing about my job loss, planning my erasure, calling me useless while I'd been earning the promotion that would have secured our future. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, sliding the lease termination papers across the table. "You're going to sign these documents. You're going to pack your belongings, your actual belongings, not the furniture I bought or the electronics I paid for, and you're going to leave. Today." He looked up, and for the first time in months, I saw genuine emotion in his eyes. "Fear. Where am I supposed to go? Your mother has been so involved in planning my eviction, I'm sure she'll be thrilled to have you back. Or maybe Emma's studio. Though I suppose that's tight with a baby coming. You can't just. I can. See this." I tapped my promotion letter. "Vice President of Marketing. My new salary is more than enough to cover this apartment alone. The lease may be in your name, but Sarah Chin from Winters and Associates has prepared everything needed to transfer it or break it cleanly. Your choice. Cooperate now or I pursue fraud charges that will follow you forever." His hand shook as he picked up the pen. "This is extortion. This is consequences." He signed each page, his signature getting progressively shakier. While he wrote, I texted the moving company. "Confirmed. Please arrive at 2 p.m. Lobby collection as discussed." "You've been planning this," he whispered, setting down the pen. For 2 weeks. While you thought I was drowning, I was building a lifeboat. While you and Emma picked out crib colors, I was documenting everything. While your family toasted my departure at her baby shower, I was securing my future. I stood, gathering the signed documents. The movers will be here in 2 hours. Take only what's yours. My paralegal has an itemized list of every purchase I've made for this apartment. Try to take anything on that list and the fraud charges become theft charges too. Justin stood on unsteady legs, looking around the apartment like he was seeing it for the first time. Or maybe the last time. Kimberly, please. We can work this out. Emma means nothing. Stop. The word cracked like a whip. Emma means so little that you fathered a child with her? Planned a future with her? Don't insult what's left of my intelligence. He stumbled toward the bedroom and I heard drawers opening, the sound of hasty packing. I sat back down at the table, my hands finally steady, and picked up my phone to text Sarah. Documents signed. Proceeding as planned. Her response was immediate, standing by. You're doing amazing. Amazing. I didn't feel amazing. I felt hollow, like someone had scooped out my insides and left only the shell. But I was standing. I was fighting. And in 2 hours Justin would be gone, and I could finally stop pretending to be the woman he'd tried to break. The sound of drawers slamming echoed through the apartment as Justin moved between rooms, grabbing armfuls of clothing and shoving them into garbage bags he'd found under the sink. I sat at the kitchen table, Sarah's itemized list in front of me, checking off each item he tried to claim. The watch, I said, not looking up from my list as he emerged from the bedroom with his wrist bare. The Omega Seamaster. That was my birthday gift to you. Leave it on the dresser. He stopped mid-stride, his face flushing red. You gave that to me. It's mine. Legally, gifts between spouses can be reclaimed during asset division, especially when fraud is involved. Would you like me to call Sarah to confirm? The watch appeared on the counter 5 minutes later. He moved to the living room, reaching for the espresso machine. This was purchased with my Christmas bonus. December 15th, 2 years ago. I have the receipt. I held up my phone, the digital receipt already pulled up. The coffee grinder too. And the milk frother. His hands dropped to his sides. For a moment he looked around the apartment with new eyes, perhaps finally seeing how much of our life together had been built on my foundation. The television I'd bought when his startup sold their office equipment. The sound system I'd surprised him with after his first successful pitch, back when I still believed in his dreams. The leather couch where he'd spent so many evenings planning my removal. So what exactly am I allowed to take? His voice cracked with frustration. Your clothing. Your laptop. Your personal documents. The golf clubs your brother gave you. The signed baseball from your father. I kept my tone neutral, clinical. Everything you brought into this marriage or received from your family. Nothing we built together. Nothing I built for us. He grabbed a box and headed for his makeshift office, muttering under his breath. I heard him on the phone, his voice urgent and panicked. Mom, you need to come. No. She's lost it. She's taking everything. 20 minutes later the intercom buzzed. The doorman's voice crackled through. Mrs. Carter, there's a Heather Martin here to see you. Should I send her up? Yes, thank you, Roberto. I positioned myself by the door, phone in hand, recording app ready. The elevator chimed, and Heather burst into the hallway like an avenging angel in designer clothing. Her face was flushed, her carefully styled hair slightly disheveled from what must have been a frantic taxi ride. How dare you, she hissed before she'd even fully entered the apartment. How dare you ambush my son like this? You manipulative little. Heather. I held up my phone, showing her the recording screen. Before you continue, you should know I'm documenting this interaction. Please come in. We have so much to discuss. She paused, eyes narrowing, then swept into the apartment with the confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences. You think you're clever? You think you can steal my son's home with your little recordings and papers? I think, I said calmly, pulling up a specific file on my phone, you should listen to this before making any more threats. Her own voice filled the room. That Kimberly was never good enough for our family. Too ambitious. Too independent. Real women know their place. Then, she'll be grateful for whatever you offer. Maybe $1,000 to start over. And finally, Emma deserves this apartment after being so patient while you dealt with that career-obsessed wife of yours. The color drained from Heather's face as she recognized her words, heard the casual cruelty in her own voice. Her mouth opened and closed but no sound emerged. I have hours of these conversations, I continued. You and Justin planning my removal. Discussing my replacement. Calling me not a real woman because I have a career. Would you like me to send these to your country club? Your church group? That charity board you sit on? You wouldn't dare. Try me. She looked at Justin, who had emerged from the bedroom with another garbage bag of clothes. Tell her she can't do this. Tell her. Mom, just stop. Please. He looked exhausted, defeated. It's over. That's when his phone rang. The screen lit up with Emma's name and a photo of a young blonde woman, her hand resting on a visible baby bump. Before Justin could react, I grabbed the phone and swiped to answer, immediately putting it on speaker. Justin, baby. Emma's voice was bright, excited. I'm at the apartment building. The doorman says there's some confusion. Is our apartment ready? I have the movers scheduled for tomorrow morning. The silence in the room was deafening. Justin reached for the phone, but I stepped back, holding it between us like evidence in a courtroom. Emma. I said clearly. This is Kimberly. Justin's wife. Pause. Oh. Justin said you were gone? Yes, that was the plan. But plans change. You should know that Justin is moving back with his mother. The apartment was never his to give you. It's been funded entirely by my salary for the past 2 years. But he said, the baby, we're supposed to. I'm truly sorry you've been misled. Justin has a pattern of making promises he can't keep. Ask him about his 3 failed startups if you want details. Good luck with your baby, Emma. You're going to need it. I hung up and handed the phone back to Justin. He stared at it like it might explode. You just ruined everything, Heather whispered, her voice shaking with rage. No, I corrected. Justin ruined everything when he decided to have an affair. You helped ruin everything when you encouraged it. I'm just refusing to be a casualty of your collective cruelty. The movers arrived 10 minutes later, efficient and professional. They loaded Justin's meager belongings onto a cart while Heather followed behind, trying to add items that weren't on the approved list. Each time I stopped them, receipt in hand, proof at the ready. By 4 p.m. they stood in the doorway with everything Justin could legally claim packed into garbage bags and cardboard boxes. Heather's face was twisted with fury, her lips moving in what looked like a curse or a prayer. You'll regret this, she spat. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. I'll destroy your reputation. The doorman has been instructed not to let either of you back in, I said simply. Your keys, Justin. He placed them on the entrance table where I'd once left mine as part of my fake departure. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. This isn't over, Heather said as the elevator doors opened. Yes, I said, my hand on my door now. It is. I closed the door on their shocked faces, hearing Heather's shrill voice fade as the elevator descended. Through the peephole, I watched the hallway empty out, the space return to silence. The chapter closed with the quiet finality of a period at the end of a very long sentence. I stood alone in my apartment, the door solid against my back, and let the silence wash over me. For the first time in 8 years, the quiet didn't feel heavy or expectant. It felt like possibility. My knees buckled and I slid down until I sat on the hardwood floor. The tears came then, not the careful, silent crying I'd perfected during my marriage, but raw, gasping sobs that shook my entire body. Each sob felt like releasing poison from my system, 8 years of accumulated compromises and diminishments finally finding their way out. When the tears stopped, I felt hollow but clean, like a room that had been stripped down to its bones before renovation. I pulled out my phone and dialed the Chinese restaurant Justin had banned from our delivery rotation 2 years ago. Golden Dragon? Yes, I'd like to place an order for delivery. My voice was hoarse but steady. General Tso's chicken extra spicy. Vegetable spring rolls. Shrimp fried rice. And your hot and sour soup. I rattled off the address, then added, actually throw in some crab rangoon too. While waiting for the food, I walked to our wine cabinet, my wine cabinet now, and pulled out the bottle of Chateau Margaux. Patricia had given it to me when I'd landed the Morrison Industries account, a deal worth $3 million in annual revenue. Justin had immediately claimed it when his ship came in. Well, my ship had arrived and his had sunk. The cork came out with a satisfying pop. I poured the wine into a regular water glass. The crystal was his mother's gift, and looking at it made my skin crawl. The first sip tasted like victory. My sister Rebecca answered immediately. Kimberly, how's Boston? Did you get there safely? I never went to Boston, I said, and then everything tumbled out. The test, the discovery, Emma and the baby, the confrontation, Justin's pathetic exit with garbage bags full of clothes. Rebecca listened without interrupting until I finished. That absolute piece of garbage, she finally said, her voice vibrating with rage. 8 years. 8 years of watching you shrink yourself for that man, and this is what he was doing. I should have seen it sooner. Stop. Don't you dare blame yourself. He's a master manipulator just like his mother. Remember Thanksgiving 2 years ago? When she asked if you were gaining weight right after you'd gotten promoted. The food arrived while we dissected every red flag, every family gathering where his relatives had treated me like an interloper. I ate straight from the containers, sauce dripping onto my expensive coffee table, the kind of thing that would have triggered a lecture from Justin about maintaining standards. The whole family knew, I told Rebecca between bites of perfectly spicy chicken. Marcus, Jennifer, all of them. They were planning my replacement while eating at my table. They're all trash. Every single one of them. You know what? I'm coming to visit next weekend. We're going to drink wine and burn every photo of him. Monday arrived with surprising speed. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, applying makeup with steady hands. The charcoal Armani suit hung perfectly, the one Justin said made me look like I was trying too hard. I added the ruby earrings I'd bought myself last year, the ones he'd called excessive. Walking into the office felt like entering a different universe. My assistant Marie did a double take when she saw me. Miss Carter. I thought you had a family situation. All resolved, I said smoothly. Is everything ready for the quarterly meeting? Patricia Chin intercepted me outside the conference room. Kimberly, are you all right? You seem different. I'm better than all right, I said, meeting her eyes directly. I'm ready to officially accept the VP position. When Patricia announced my promotion to the assembled department heads, I stood at that podium feeling the weight of every sacrifice, every late night, every dismissed achievement. Kimberly Carter has been instrumental in our growth, Patricia said. Her vision for our digital transformation will define our next decade. I gave my prepared remarks about market positioning and strategic initiatives, but inside I was thinking about Justin calling me useless. The irony was so sharp it almost made me laugh. Useless. The woman generating millions in revenue. The woman leading 40 professionals. The woman earning more than his last 3 startups combined ever raised in funding. The universe's sense of humor revealed itself 3 weeks later. My college friend Melissa called with gossip she'd overheard at a professional networking event. You'll never believe what I heard about Justin Martin, she said, not knowing about our marriage. His pregnant girlfriend left him. Apparently he'd been lying about having this amazing apartment, and when she found out he was actually broke, she went back to her husband. Interesting, I managed, keeping my voice neutral. It gets better. His mother had to take him in. He's 34 and living in his childhood bedroom. Marcus was at the club last week trying to spin it as Justin reassessing his priorities, but everyone knows he's broke. What's he doing for work? Tech Help Solutions. You know that call center in Queens? My cousin saw him there during orientation. Apparently he's doing password resets for corporate accounts. From CO dreams to password resets. From plotting my removal to being removed himself. The poetry of justice writing itself. 6 months passed in a blur of success. Another promotion to senior vice president. A speaking engagement at a major conference. A profile in Fortune magazine about rising female executives. My life expanded to fill the space I'd been denied for so long. That morning, I decided to get coffee from our old spot before my board meeting. I'd avoided it for months, but I wanted my lavender latte, and I refused to let his ghost control my choices anymore. He was there, hunched over his laptop in the corner where startup founders used to gather around him like disciples. But now he sat alone, typing frantically on what looked like a pitch deck that would never see funding. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair too long, the magnetism that once drew people completely extinguished. Our eyes met across the cafe. Time stuttered. He started to rise, his mouth forming my name. I walked to the counter, ordered my latte and waited. In my peripheral vision I saw him approaching, each step uncertain. "Kimberly," he said softly. "Can we please talk?" I turned to face him fully, taking in the ruins of the man who'd tried to ruin me. He looked smaller, grayer, thoroughly defeated. Not my villain anymore, just a cautionary tale about the price of cruelty. "I'm sorry," I said clearly, my voice carrying across the quiet cafe, "but I don't have time for useless people." My name was called. I collected my latte and walked past his frozen form, pushing through the door into brilliant morning sunshine. My heels created a rhythm against the pavement. Steady, strong, unstoppable. Behind me I knew he watched through the window. Ahead lay my board meeting, my future, my empire built not with him, not despite him, but because I'd finally chosen myself. If this story of calculated revenge had you cheering for Kimberly, hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when she answered Emma's call and revealed the truth about Justin's lies. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below. Don't miss more thrilling stories like this. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload.